and is in north of Italy. Okay. We are specialized in solar architecture, in training, and we implemented a quick start method to solve the project to the customer. So normally when we go to the customer, we implement our methodology to retrieve a requirement, to implement the project, and to understand what the customer would like you to do. In this use case, the customer is the Italian municipality, the Comune di Milano. He is located in the north of Italy, too. He has about 1 million people and 4 million of tourists during the 1 year. What is the problem for the Comune di Milano? Before this application, and because before that we implement this kind of architecture, the Comune di Milano has a problem that he has a lot of application, he also has now, but the interaction between the application is one-to-one. So when he had to integrate an application with another, he goes to a one-to-one integration. And it was a big problem to the municipality because he didn't know exactly how many services he has and who is the owner of the services and also who is the owner of the data. Before this infrastructure, all the application can manage, delete, update, modify data, all kind of data. So the address of the people, the name of the people, and some information about the citizen can modify to all the application. So the municipality decided to create the interoperability platform, a unique platform and an open source platform where it was possible to publish the services and it was possible to understand how many services there is inside the municipality and it's possible to manage all the integration between the application. And also via this kind of platform, it also is possible to manage the master data, ossia to understand who is the owner of the data and define who can use this kind of data and who cannot use it. So in this process we have about 100 to 200 applications. In the project we have 2 people of Comune di Milano and we spend about 20 man days to develop epoch and about 20 man days to go in production. It is quite big project, but we start in iterative and incremental way. So for the beginning, we try to retrieve all the requirements. We have some interview with the customer. We speak with the customer and we try to understand what you need to do for this platform. So we try to understand how big the platform must be, how many instances of the product we have to do, if it's need a cluster or not, if it's an ability or not. So we have sometimes to speak with the municipality to understand exactly what we need. After that, we design a solution. Profesia design an architect solution and we share with WSO2 and we understand if it is the best solution for the customer. After that, he check the solution with the customer. So we share with him and we decide to implement epoch. Epoch, a POC, after implementation, a POC is running for 3 or 4 months and the customer has able to deploy services, consume services, and also share with all the business units inside the municipality. So the problem is not only technical, but the problem is also political because all the business units of the municipality must to understand that this is possible and is mandatory to use this kind of infrastructure. After the POC was stable and all people know the importance to use this kind of architecture, we deliver with the customer the standard for the interoperability. So we write some documentation where we decide which kind of web services, which kind of REST, which kind of technology we have to implement. We design also the processes about how to deploy architecture, how to deploy services, which kind of documentation that an application have to implement to accept that the services must be deployed inside the infrastructure. When the standard is running and is okay, we go to the production. Now we are in production in clustering. So the Comune is running this kind of infrastructure and has deployed some services. Obviously, we don't deploy all the services of the municipality, but we deploy some services. The first one is necessary for the Expo, and it is called Lost and Found, and it is a service that is necessary for the people to understand, to retrieve his thing when they lost it, and to retrieve the things that they lost during the Expo. The other services that we deploy is the GPS, is the SIPO, is services that is necessary to retrieve where the citizens live and where it's possible to retrieve information about the address and the location of the citizen. This is the architecture. During this day, you know some name, some color, some application. So we have an API manager and the business process to manage the API. We have an enterprise service bus with a data service server and a business critical monitor to monitor all what's happening inside the architecture. So the API manager or the consumers consume only the services that is deployed inside the API manager. So it's mandatory for the consumer only connected to the API manager. When the API manager can consume the services directly, these services is existing inside the municipality. If the services is a standard, the API manager connects directly with the services. Is not there, the enterprise service bus can manage it, transform it, and change from REST to SOAP to REST, from an version to another, or simplify it, or in some case, the enterprise service bus also create new services for the chain. So we use some services and we connect the services to another. We use the data service server to retrieve the information from a database and to transform the SQL into services. How we deploy it? The technical architecture is the clustering of the application is this one. So we have the API manager divided in 3 parts. We have the publish and store, where the people can retrieve the information, so can publish the services and can retrieve the services. So list of the services is inside this node. We have the key manager in clustering, 2 nodes of keys manager, and into the key manager is necessary to authenticate the people when we try to retrieve, when we try to consume the services via the API gateway. And the API gateway is also deployed in cluster. We have 4 nodes, 2 for internal and 2 for the external one, and the master to manage the cluster. So when the application tries to consume services, it goes to the gateway API, it authenticates via key manager, and views only the publication store to register the services or to retrieve the service and information about it inside the publishing and store. The clustering of enterprise service bus installed at DSS plus the DSS feature, so we have ASB and DSS installed in the same JVM, is made by 2 nodes and also the master that manage the configuration, deployment, and the development of the services deployed inside SB and DSS. The BPS is in cluster, 2 nodes. Is not worker manager because it's so easy. So we decide to deploy it in worker manager on only 2 nodes, and we have a cluster of BAM, 2 main nodes of BAM, and the clustering for Cassandra and Hadoop. We use the version 2.4, so 2.4, so we don't have in this moment the necessity to use Puppet as a system of clustering for the BAM. This is a technical architecture in this moment, and behind of this architecture there is a balancer, and the balancer is made by the technical people of the municipality of the Comune di Milano, and is made by F5 infrastructure. So we help people to implement the clustering via F5. We implement a method to understand which is the node that is active and which is passive. So in this moment we are able to manage the active passive mode via F5 implementation. What's the meaning of the single piece of architecture? The enterprise service bus and DSS we use to normalize the services or to create some chain services, and also for integrate with a non-services application. We have, unfortunately, a lot of file, Excel, CSV, text file, and we need to transform this file into services because people need to retrieve information from this file and expose as a service. So we use the enterprise service bus and DSS to do this kind of operation. And inside the customer there are a lot of database. I think in all customers there is a lot of data. And not all the applications are able to retrieve services, or because the application is so old, so it's made in old infrastructure, in old architecture, or because there is not the code for some applications, so it's not possible to create services. And so we use the DSS to take data from database and transform it into service again. Another thing that we use the enterprise service bus is to guarantee the services reliability. So we implement throttling and the possibility to understand if the backend services is down or not, and also we can manage the reliability of the services via the enterprise service bus. The API manager we use to expose the services. So people try and consume services via API manager, people/application, because the application is integrated in this moment, in this architecture. Is also used to authorize the services, to catalog the services, but also is used to produce the documentation for the services. In this moment, when the people would like to consume some services, there is no documentation inside the municipality. With the API manager, we have a possibility to upload with the services also the documentation. And the interoperability people write down all the documentation for the services, and some examples, some client. So when the application tries to consume the services, he has all the documentation for consuming. He has the example, he has the client. I can download automatically and without some particular permission from the API manager store feature. So the most important to use an API manager with a publish and a store is because we have a place where we can not only expose services, but only expose information. And it's important to expose it because we have all the documentation which is needed to consume the services. Another problem that we have with the customer is to normalize the process to extend the services. Because in this moment, what people need to consume such services from the application, the only way what you have to do is come to the developer and ask him, can I consume the services? And the developer say, yes, you can consume it. And there is no documentation that regulates the access to the services or the access to the data. Within the interoperability platform, we create a customized process where people, when would like to deploy services, when would like to access some services, or when would like to connect to the application, he has to compile some form, retrieve some data, and there is some people inside the municipality that approve this kind of information. So the business process approve the user's name, the application creation, and the services subscription. And we customize this kind of process. With a BAM, we do a monitor. In this moment, we monitor only the services. We didn't monitor the process. We do a very simple monitor. We understand how many people registered inside the services, how many consumer instances we have in this moment. In the future, we have to implement the KPI and the alarm for connected to the KPI of the services. What you do? Oh, we create the cluster. Profesia is with the technical people, he create an active passive modes clustering. So we also to design the architecture, we install the product, we configure the product, we configure the operating system, we configure the database, we install it, and also we do the test about the platform. We customize all the process. So the developer for the process is made by us, by Profesia people. He writes some standard, because some standard he wrote by the customer, and some rather he wrote us. And we do a pair programming. So for this project, for the first time, the municipality don't want that the customer, he is the only owner of the infrastructure. But the Comune di Milano give us 2 people, and these 2 people know exactly all the infrastructure, all the technical problem that we have, all the way to install and manage the application. We are not able to install the application, but you know how it can do. Well, but you know what's happened during the installation. So we do a pair programming for services development and also for manage the platform. In this moment, the people are able to maintain the platform alone. Sometimes, yesterday, he called, asked if there is some problems, some bug, but for the normal maintenance of the platform, the Comune di Milano it can do in autonomy. Our value added that we do in this project. We know all the WSO2 platform. So when you arrive inside the Comune di Milano, Profesia know all the application about WSO2, and we are able to decide which is the best one to use. For the beginning, the municipality would like to use the enterprise service bus, but we try to explain that it was better to use also the API manager, but if he has the BPS, the DSS, etc., etc. So we have the customer to choose the correct application what he have to use. And this is possible because Profesia she know all the solution that WSO2 has, and because we implement all the product to other customers. And the other ability that we have in this moment is we are able to communicate with all developers inside the Comune di Milano. We are able to communicate with PHP.NET, Java developer to interact with API manager. So when there is some problem from the client, when the client has some problem to access data, to retrieve authentication, to do some interaction with the infrastructure, we speak directly with the developer. And we implement the agile methodology with interactive incremental approach. We start with with an API manager and an enterprise service bus, and nothing else. After that, I added an DSS. After that, we added BPS. And when all is working, we added a BAM. So we install one product at a time. The POC is not in cluster, it is in a single instance. And for the first installation, we install all inside a single machine. When all is working, we split in another machine. So we do an interactive incremental approach, so the customer can understand what he needs. It was easy for us to destroy something and install again, because we didn't install in the same in one time all the application what we need to for the architecture. A simple, very simple SWOT analysis what we have from this project. Yes, there is some strengths, opportunity. The weakness is that is quite complexity for no technical people, because there is clustering, active passes. Oh, I don't understand which is up, which is down. So there is some problem about this. But the point that I would like to put attention to you is the networking dependent. In this moment, the clustering depends of the architecture of the network, and sometimes I have to speak with the technical people about to understand if he has some network problem, because we are not able to access to our services. And we have some threats. In this moment, the most important point is that the infrastructure is not mandatory. So there is no limitation to access the existing services directly, because in this moment we are not able to lock, to create a block to a network and guarantee that the people didn't access directly to the services. So sometimes when we are taking coffee, I can understand that some people try to over this kind of infrastructure and try to access directly to the services. And this is not, we cannot limit this kind of access, because it's not possible to block all and start again from a new kind of approach. The other threat is that in this moment, not all people understand SOA as architecture, understand SOA as web services. And the other one is that sometimes some decision about the implementation of the services is not easy to do, because we have to do in marketed in least time, and we didn't understand that it's impossible. It's important to understand what is the project maintenance. So sometimes you speak with people, but you decide to implement this service in this way. What's about the project maintenance? What's it? Why? So is the most threat that we have in this moment. In the future, we have to implement the BAN KPI. We have to deploy new services, and we would like to create a process to automate the integration request. So when people have to integrate to the platform, we would like to create a process so the people have to complete the form, approve integration, retrieve all the data, persist the data inside a database. And then, it was really easy to do this kind of approach with WSO2, because we deploy in the POC in very, very quickly time, and it's very, very easy to deploy new services. There is the two people that help us to deploy the services inside the Comune di Milano. I'm not technical, so we teach him how to develop in Synapse. He wrote down Synapse using the web interface, and he created the main services that you have to deploy inside the services. And Another approach that it was easy to implement now is the separation of concept. It was easy for us explain to all the people of Comune di Milano what is the separation of concept inside the Architect.